We have a lot to cover in today's video, including the news that Leafs forward Ilya Mikheyev has requested a trade. We also have updates on Jack Eichel and Phil Kessel on the trade market as well. Plus, we have several signings and a retirement as well. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned today, we actually have a ton of news to discuss, so certainly want to watch all the way through and take note of all the different news items here. Of course, everything is divided into YouTube chapters. There's timestamps down below, but we have a lot to cover here, so let's dive in and get started. First up, longtime NHL player David Backes announced his retirement. Backes signed a one-day contract just about 2 days ago with the St. Louis Blues, where he spent the bulk and most productive chunk of his career and ended up retiring as a Blue. Of course, I meant to mention this in yesterday's video, but I accidentally omitted it. There was lots of other news to talk about as well. But Backes certainly deservingly will go down as one of the great American-born players. Was a prototypical power forward in his heyday when he was in his prime. He could score 30 goals, absolutely be a dominant physical force, win on faceoffs, drop the gloves, and really did it all. Had some real solid productive years in the St. Louis organization, especially after he signed that big free agent contract with Boston. He did start to decline and had some injuries, and things never really worked out the best during his time in Boston and after he bounced around a bit after. But in his day, like I said, he was dominant, and he was quite a hockey player and certainly had some good moments for Team USA as well on the international stage. But David Backes, certainly want to wish him the best in retirement. And certainly somebody I got a lot of respect for how hard he played. And he and his wife also do a lot of great things for the community as well. I know they've done a lot, especially when it comes to animal rescue, especially. That seemed to be their big charity and different thing that they focused on outside of hockey. So certainly nice to see him retire in a Blues uniform where he spent the most productive years of his career. We also had some signings today. One was kind of like the worst kept secret in hockey. Zach Parise finally gets announced as a New York Islander today and had a chance to chat with Islander media. I mean, he did mention to, I believe it was Michael Russo, about saying that he came to terms with the Islanders earlier in the offseason, but nothing has been announced. And there's been several of these deals, not just with the Islanders, but with other teams as well. And some of the signings we're going to talk about today and that we've seen before are believed to have been deals that basically were agreed to a number of days or weeks ago and were kind of filed away in the drawer. And I think part of that is that they were not filed with the league yet, because they're working on trades, and as things are either materializing or not materializing, they're deciding to proceed and make them official. So ultimately, the Parise deal, which we actually do not know the official terms. I believe it's probably a one-year deal around $1 million is what I'm guessing. It could be some bonuses in there as well. That's quite possible, but even though they finally officially announced him as a member of the Islanders, they didn't release any details of the contract, and I've yet to see any NHL insider dig it up to put it out there. So if it does get picked up on, I'll certainly update the pinned comment down below, and we'll go from there. But I'm sure it's a one-year cheap contract, most likely. Of course, he'll become, I believe, the first father-son duo with his dad, JP, to play with the Islanders. So, of course, he also played in Minnesota, so following in his father's footsteps here again. So, of course, hopefully everything works out for him with the Islanders. He should be a good addition there to play a smaller role. We also had a couple signings in Calgary, and these signings are a little bit of a head-scratcher, in my opinion. They've announced two signings today for defensemen, one being Michael Stone and the other being Erik Gudbranson. Stone gets a one-year deal at $750,000. It's a one-way contract as well. And to be honest, that's not a huge shock, and I don't have a huge issue with that either. Stone was actually a pretty productive defenseman after Daryl Sutter took over the Flames. He played really well at the end of the year. He has been basically working these short-term deals, had to go to camp on PTO. He even was bought out before by the Flames. It's been kind of a odd relationship there, but they seem to bring him back. He has like 9 lives, I think, with that organization. And ultimately, like I said, I don't have an issue with that, but the Gudbranson deal is $1.95 million. I do take issue with that. I get to see him play a lot last year when he was with the Senators. I got traded to Nashville around the deadline. But this guy, he was not having a good season at all. If you want some grit and some toughness, he can provide that. He will drop the gloves. He will throw some big hits occasionally. But the bulk of the time, he gets caved in at both ends of the ice. he can't really contribute offensively. And defensively, like, it was bad. It was extremely bad. If you paid attention closely to the really bad slow start to the Sens last year, a lot of it had to fall on himself and Josh Brown in the first probably 7 or 8 games. That right side of their blue line was an absolute train wreck because these two guys were just getting caved in shift after shift and just giving up too many grade A opportunities. So not only to sign him, but to pay him that much, to me, was a complete waste by the Flames. I understand he fits the bill for what Sutter likes. He wants grit. He wants toughness. But, man, they've brought in a lot of that. I'm just not sure how much more that they need. We have seen no shakeup with the Flames organization this year when it comes to their core players, except for losing Giordano in expansion, which was beyond their control. So, to me, I'm not a fan of what the Flames offseason has looked like here. They're going to rely heavily on guys like Rasmus Andersson, Chris Tanev. Valimaki should be able to grab a bigger role, and Hanifin, of course, will be a big part. So clearly these guys are, if they're put in the right situations and given the right setup with the right, starts and everything, maybe it'll be okay. But I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of confidence in Gudbranson. Former first-round pick that he's carved out a decent career. But if he wasn't a first-round pick, he probably wouldn't be judged the way he is either. But still, anyway, I'm just surprised by these deals, especially the Gudbranson one for Calgary. But enough about him. I also want to mention the fact that looking good for Brian Boyle in Pittsburgh on a PTO. Of course, knowing that Crosby and Malkin are both going to be on the shelf to start the season, I would suspect that that's going to be a much bigger likelihood if he does well in camp to get himself a short-term contract, because they're really going to be, needing some help at the center position. And also, speaking of centers, we don't know exactly what teams are involved here, but Tyler Bozak apparently does have a few options, according to Elliot Friedman, and should be making the decision just about any time here in the next couple of days before it gets too much later into September. Apparently, he's got multiple options that he's kind of deciding what to do and which way he's heading. And I would suspect he should make a decision soon before some of those offers are no longer on the table. I would imagine one of them could be returning to St. Louis. But even a team like Pittsburgh, like I just mentioned with Boyle, they could use at least some short-term help at center. I wonder if they would consider Bozak on a short-term contract, but it's going to boil down to money too. So we will see what happens. But the Bozak signing should be pretty soon. Now, before we jump any further into today's video, I do need to pause and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. Of course, with Manscaped, we have a special offer here for all Top Shelf Hockey viewers where you can get 20% off and free shipping on all orders at manscaped.com. Now, of course, Manscaped just launched a brand new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is a fantastic product. They've taken the level up here, even again with the skin-safe replaceable blades. It's waterproof, it's wireless charging, has a travel lock on it, as well as a nice light so you don't miss what you're doing. So certainly a terrific product. Now, many people associate Manscaped with their trimmers, which is certainly kind of their top product, but they do have a lot of other great options as well, including what they call the Weed Whacker, which is another trimmer for your ears and nose. And they have a variety of deodorants and sprays as well, which also keep you fresh and are terrific as well. So certainly Manscaped has a lot to offer, and we certainly highly recommend all of their products. So check out manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for watching that promotional content. I do greatly appreciate it. Now, getting into the rest of the video, pretty well all this rest of it comes from Elliot Friedman's latest blog. He put out what he called like a quick blog just in the last not even 24 hours here, talking about a variety of items. And one that surprised many was the fact that he says that earlier this offseason, at the end of the year, that Ilya Mikheyev of the Maple Leafs apparently requested a trade and wanted to be moved. But here's the other part, is that apparently the Maple Leafs said, no, we are not trading you. They denied his trade request. Now, apparently the trade request kind of stemmed from wanting more opportunity, wanting a bigger role, more minutes and all that. And, I understand that with the team they have, for him to get regularly into the top 6 may not be possible at times, although there will be at least one spot, available depending on who else is kind of, looking to grab those spots. But the Leafs keep bringing in lots of wingers on short-term deals to compete for some of these spots, right? But ultimately, Mikheyev should be able to be a pretty mainstay on the third line, I would think, with the potential to jump up in the top 6 whenever there's, somebody's not playing well, there's an injury or something to that effect. I mean, obviously, he comes across as a very, happy guy. Like, since he's been in Toronto, he's always got a big smile. So it's surprising to hear that he wanted to trade. But the fact that they said no, essentially, like, to me, if you look at their wing depth, I mean, ultimately, this team, really, I can understand why they would not want to trade Ilya Mikheyev. I mean, I think he has enough potential to be a pretty solid producer. When he first came over, it's unfortunate his first season kind of got cut short here with a freak injury, which kept him out for an extended period of time. But that first year, he ended up putting up 23 points in 39 games. Last year, he did struggle a bit, but like I said, a lot of it was the role he was given, but 17 points in 54 games. But he currently is, he's only 26 years old. He'll be 27 in October, on a pretty good contract as well. He still has one more year, $1.6 million. He'll be an unrestricted free agent. So to me, I think what it looks like they're not planning to move him. I mean, I guess if he pushes the issue too much, they may not have a choice. But at the end of the day, I think it's probably best he stay anyways. I mean, like I said, you get your Matthews, Tavares, Marner, Nylander, your big four basically. And then after that, you kind of have a couple spots up there, one on each line, because you're going to likely see Matthews, Marner, Tavares, Marner, or you're going to see Matthews, Marner play on one line, Nylander, Tavares likely on the other. Then you get a spot on each line there, like Zach Hyman's role is kind of up for grabs. There could be a spot there for Nick Ritchie, could be Andre Kasha, could be Michael Bunting, or could maybe even be Mikheyev. Like, it's hard to say. He might be able to nail down a top six role this year if he has a good training camp. And like I said, like with the wing depth, to me, I don't think he's better off going to another organization. I think the opportunity is right there. So we'll see where this story develops. At this point, it looks as though, like I said, that the trade request has been denied. They intend to talk to him through training camp and essentially explain to how they see him in the future and being a valuable piece, and hope that he'll finish out his contract. Now, even though the recent rumors we saw around Coyotes defenseman Jacob Chychrun did turn out to be false, and there's really no desire to trade him out of Arizona, one player to look for, according to Friedman, which is somebody we talked about before, is winger Phil Kessel. Now, he had requested a trade this offseason as well. He did want to be moved. He saw, obviously, everything that was happening in Arizona. The team is going through a major rebuild, bit of a teardown. They're absolutely tanking this year. So to me, the fact that he hasn't been traded yet is a bit of a surprise. But from what I've been able to dig up here through different reports from Friedman and others, it just sounds like there really hasn't been much interest, which I find surprising. He's been a productive guy his entire career. He doesn't have a terrible contract, especially where the Leafs originally retained salary the rest of the way through when they first traded him on a fairly fresh contract that was signed not long before the trade. So at the end of the day here, Arizona could even retain more to make it that much more affordable. So really, Phil Kessel is a player that could be had for a relatively decent cap hit for what he can bring you. A couple Stanley Cups to his resume. And I really have been surprised at the lack of interest. However, Friedman goes on to mention that he's likely the next guy traded out of Arizona, and that you can expect that if he gets off to a good start, that he really should have the trade talks accelerate around him and maybe get moved well ahead of the deadline. If not, he could be one of the key veteran players available at this deadline that could certainly go on to help another team, possibly with a playoff run, and maybe have a shot at another Stanley Cup. But obviously, I think it's important for him to get off to a hot start. It's probably important to the team, if they want to get a good return, to make sure they place him in the best predicament possible to have a good start. Give him all the top line minutes they can to try to showcase him and see if they can figure out a trade for him before the season gets too far along. His blog also goes on to give us an update on the Jack Eichel situation. Now, the main points here is that Eichel and his new representation in the Sabres have had some meetings. Obviously, they kind of do like an introductory type of thing to kind of get everything sorted out and filled out, so that obviously they know where everybody stands, obviously, which is not a huge surprise. Obviously, at this point, he also goes on to mention that since Labor Day, that trade talks have picked up here with other teams kind of re-engaging in the Jack Eichel sweepstakes. Obviously, not a big surprise. Once you're past Labor Day, you're kind of into the home stretch here, a few weeks away from training camp getting started. And obviously, that can make teams kind of trying to square away some final pieces of business here before the season gets started. Obviously, there's a handful of teams around the league still trying to sign some higher profile restricted free agents. But then there's still teams looking to make some final trades here. There's still some big names out there like Eichel and others. And to me, it's kind of a situation where teams are kind of starting to take care of their other business, and there's less and less teams available here in this Eichel situation. And the fact that it's taken so long, I really think Kevin Adams and the Sabres, and I hope to a degree I'm wrong so they get a better return, but I think it's kind of getting to that point where teams are kind of falling out of the sweepstakes, and they're going to paint themselves into a corner where there's just so few teams that can do the deal and want to do the deal that it's going to diminish the return, because the leverage is going to swing from, yes, we have a top awesome player that's available for trade, to, yes, you do, but nobody else wants them but us, so you're going to give us the price we want. Essentially, it's all about supply and demand here, and you only got one top guy like him, and it's a top center available, and you don't have much demand, your return goes down. It's just that quite simple. And to me, like looking at the moves that the Flames made today, that kind of eats away more cap space, and to me, that just probably solidifies the fact that they've decided to finally announce these contracts, get them on the books, because they're likely out on Eichel, is what many believe here. And even though you might say, well, why are these deals going to indicate that? It's like, well, you know what? Like I said, a lot of these contracts, including those two defensemen, were believed to have agreed to terms several weeks ago, and it's just being announced now. They kind of were waiting to see if they could do other things first, and that this is a signal that they're probably moving on. So to me, you get the Flames that are out with all the Islanders moves and signings we've seen lately. They're likely out on Tarasenko, for example. And you got the Rangers are rumored to be working on a long-term contract with Mika Zibanejad. And if they get that done, then they're going to be out, because to me, you can't have Eichel and Zibanejad at $10+ million. It just is way too much money for your top two center icemen in a flat cap world. So if they're going to extend Zibanejad, he's going to get big money. And to me, I don't see them having both players, but you never know. But it just seems pretty unlikely. They're going to have Adam Fox coming up here on a mega contract too. They've got Jacob Trouba at $8 million. Kreider's got a long-term deal. There's only so much money to go around, right? So hard to say. We don't know exactly what teams re-engaged. Friedman didn't get into that. I would think we're looking at probably like maybe the Ducks, to a degree the Rangers, because that Zibanejad contract's not done. But the fact they're having conversations leads me to think that they're not confident they're going to get it done either, right? So they're probably going to have to stick with what they have and sign him, which is still not a bad deal, really. I think a lot of Rangers fans would be quite content with that, the way he's played the last few years. So either way, like I said, the trade talks have picked up. The new representation, certainly having lots of chats here with the Sabres organization and hoping to get something done soon, but that's about as far as we know right now. So let me know what your thoughts are on all today's news and rumors. We'll discuss further down in the comments. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news and rumors on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.